April 16, 1947. Auschwitz. He was hanged 30 feet from the ovens. The same railway gate. The same courtyard. The same spring wind that once carried the stench of burning hair. Now it carried silence. The man on the scaffold didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't even look away, just blinked once at the rope. He built the timetables, the chimneys, the system. He turned mass murder into a process. Gas in, ash out. 1 million dead, most without a name, all without a grave. And now here he was, standing on wood laid over gravel. The very gravel that boots used to march across in rows of 5. Where roll calls lasted hours. Where men collapsed from exhaustion just inches from survival. He stood there with no priest, no sermon, no final mercy, just a gallows. The crowd watching, some of them were survivors. Some had walked off trains at this very gate. Some had watched their families vanish into the smoke. They weren't here for revenge. They were here for witness. This is the story of the execution of Rudolf Höss, the commandant of Auschwitz. A tale of ambition, ideology, and the consequences of blind obedience. Join us as we unravel the life, crimes, and final reckoning of a man who oversaw one of history's greatest tragedies. Early life and world at war. Born on November 25, 1901, in the quiet town of Baden-Baden, nestled in the German Empire, Rudolf Höss entered the world under the strict gaze of a devout Catholic family. His father, a former army officer who had served in German East Africa, instilled in his son a rigid sense of discipline and religious fervor. The household was one of order, where obedience was paramount, and young Höss was groomed for a future in the priesthood. Daily prayers, moral teachings, and a structured upbringing shaped his early years, with his father's military background casting a long shadow. The expectation was clear. Höss was to dedicate his life to the church, to serve as a beacon of spiritual guidance in a world his father saw as increasingly wayward. But fate had other plans. In 1916, when Höss was just 15, his father died, leaving a void in the family structure and appending the path to the priesthood. The outbreak of World War I 2 years earlier had already begun to reshape the world around him, and with his father's death, Höss found himself adrift, caught in the currents of a nation at war. In 1916, he volunteered to serve in a military hospital, tending to the wounded as the conflict raged across Europe. The experience exposed him to the brutal realities of war. Blood, suffering, and death became familiar companions. By 1917, at the age of 16, he was drafted into the German army, sent to the Turkish front where the Ottoman Empire fought alongside Germany. There, amidst the chaos of battle, Höss distinguished himself. At 17, he became the youngest non-commissioned officer in the German forces, earning the Iron Cross First and Second Class for his bravery. These decorations, symbols of valor in a brutal conflict, marked the beginning of a life shaped by military discipline and a willingness to act decisively under pressure. The armistice of 1918 brought Germany's defeat, a bitter pill for a young man who had risked his life for the fatherland. Returning to a nation humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, Höss carried with him a profound sense of betrayal, the narrative of a stab in the back. The belief that Germany's loss was due to internal treachery rather than military failure took root in his mind, as it did for many of his generation. This resentment fueled his next steps. After completing his secondary education, Höss joined the Free Corps, paramilitary groups that roamed post-war Germany, engaging in violent campaigns against perceived enemies. He participated in armed attacks during the Silesian uprisings against Polish communities and targeted French nationals during the French occupation of the Ruhr. These acts of terror, cloaked in nationalist fervor, revealed a growing capacity for violence in the young veteran. In 1922, a pivotal moment arrived when Höss attended a speech in Munich. Adolf Hitler, who was then a rising political figure. Hitler's fiery rhetoric, blaming Germany's woes on external forces and internal betrayals, the Jews, resonated deeply with Höss. That year, he joined the Nazi Party, pledging himself to a movement that promised to restore Germany's glory. The ideology offered answers to the chaos of the post-war years, pointing fingers at those it deemed responsible for the nation's suffering. Höss embraced this worldview, finding in it a sense of purpose and belonging. His path to cruelty. The following year, 1923, marked a turning point in Höss's descent into extremism. On May 31st, in Mecklenburg, he and other Freikorps members committed a brutal act of vengeance. Believing a schoolteacher had betrayed a comrade to French authorities, Höss led a group in the teacher's murder. The crime was savage, a reflection of the lawlessness that gripped parts of Germany. Arrested and tried as the ringleader, Höss was found guilty on May 17, 1924, and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Another participant, a man who would later rise to prominence in the Nazi hierarchy, received a lighter sentence of 1 year. Höss's incarceration was a stark contrast to the freedom of the Freikorps, but his commitment to the Nazi cause remained unshaken. Released in July 1928 as part of a general amnesty, Höss emerged from prison a committed ideologue. For the next 6 years, he lived a quieter life, working on farms and estates across Germany. On August 17, 1929, he married Hedwig Hensel, and over the next 5 years they welcomed 5 children. This period of domesticity belied the storm brewing within him, as his loyalty to the Nazi movement persisted, waiting for an opportunity to resurface. That opportunity came in 1929 when Heinrich Himmler, appointed by Adolf Hitler to lead the SS, the Nazi Party's elite security force, invited Höss to join its ranks. On April 1, 1934, Höss became an SS member, assigned to Dachau concentration camp in December of that year. As a block leader, he oversaw prisoners with a precision that earned him praise from his superiors. Dachau, the first concentration camp established by the Nazi regime, was a training ground for the brutality that would define Höss's career. He admired Himmler deeply, reportedly displaying his photograph in his office rather than Hitler's, a testament to his devotion to the SS leader's vision. Höss's efficiency at Dachau led to rapid promotions. In 1938, he was elevated to SS captain and appointed adjutant at Sachsenhausen concentration camp, where he continued to hone his administrative skills. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Höss joined the Waffen-SS, the military arm of the SS, further aligning himself with the regime's aggressive expansion. In early 1940, Höss was given a new assignment: to oversee the development of a concentration camp in the annexed province of Upper Silesia, Poland. This camp, built on the site of an old Polish army barracks in Auschwitz, would become Auschwitz. Höss approached the task with a determination to surpass the camps where he had previously served. He later wrote, "I was determined to make Auschwitz a model of efficiency, unlike anything seen at Dachau or Sachsenhausen." Under his command, Auschwitz grew into a sprawling complex, divided into 3 distinct facilities: Auschwitz I, the administrative hub; Auschwitz III Monowitz, a slave labor camp; and Auschwitz II Birkenau, the extermination camp where the majority of murders were committed. The heart of the Holocaust. In May 1941, Himmler delivered a chilling directive. The Führer had ordered a final solution to the Jewish question, a euphemism for the systematic genocide of European Jews. Höss was instructed to keep this order secret, even from his superiors, and to receive operational directives from Adolf Eichmann, a key architect of the Holocaust. By September 1941, Höss began experimenting with methods of mass murder. Initial gassing operations took place in small bunkers, hidden deep in the forests around Auschwitz to avoid detection. According to Höss, it was his deputy who first suggested the use of Zyklon B, a cyanide-based pesticide, after testing it on Russian prisoners of war in August 1941. Höss seized on this method, overseeing the conversion of Auschwitz into a killing machine. He later recounted, "We installed gas chambers and crematoria to carry out the task with maximum efficiency. The process was horrifyingly systematic. When transports arrived, SS doctors divided prisoners into 2 groups, those fit for forced labor and those deemed unfit. typically the elderly, children, and mothers with young children. The unfit were sent directly to the gas chambers. To prevent panic and resistance, Höss implemented a strategy of deception. Guards were ordered to speak politely, even jokingly, to prisoners, assuring them they were headed for a shower or delousing. Signs on the gas chamber buildings read "to disinfection" or "to the bath," a cruel ruse that deceived most victims. Höss himself admitted the emotional toll of his actions, particularly regarding children. He wrote, "I felt the weight of this terrible task, especially when it came to the children." Yet, his personal qualms did not halt the machinery of death. The SS men under his command were also affected, with many requesting transfers or seeking explanations for the necessity of killing thousands of women and children. Höss's response was unwavering. These were orders from the highest authority, to be obeyed without question. Eichmann, during one visit, explained the chilling logic. "It is especially the children who must be killed first, for a generation left alive could become avengers of their parents, forming a new biological cell for their people's resurgence." This justification, rooted in the Nazi ideology of racial purity, silenced dissent among the SS ranks. High-ranking Nazi officials and SS officers visited Auschwitz to observe the extermination process. Some, who had vocally supported the policy in Berlin, fell silent when confronted with the reality of the gas chambers and crematoria. The scale of the killing was staggering. Höss estimated that at least 2,500,000 victims were executed by gassing and burning, with another 500,000 succumbing to starvation and disease, totaling approximately 3 million deaths under his command. In December 1943, Höss was abruptly replaced as commandant, possibly due to an affair with a political prisoner. He was reassigned to the SS main economic and administrative office, taking over his successor's former role. However, his tenure away from Auschwitz was brief. In March 1944, Nazi Germany occupied Hungary, and on May 8, 1944, Höss returned to Auschwitz to oversee a massive operation. Over 56 days, more than 585,000 Jewish men, women, and children, including 430,000 Hungarian Jews, were transported to the camp and killed. Höss later described this period as an unprecedented task, executed with relentless precision. For his role, he was awarded the War Merit Cross, a grim recognition of his efficiency. His final posting was at Ravensbrück concentration camp, another site of Nazi atrocities. Justice and execution. As the Soviet Red Army advanced in early 1945, Höss fled Auschwitz, returning to administrative duties in Berlin. In the war's final days, Himmler advised him to disguise himself as a German sailor to avoid capture. When Nazi Germany surrendered in May 1945, Höss adopted the alias Franz Lang and worked as a farm laborer, blending into the chaos of post-war Germany. For nearly a year, he evaded justice, moving quietly among rural communities. On March 11, 1946, his luck ran out. British troops, acting on intelligence provided by his wife, who revealed his whereabouts to protect their son from further harm, captured him. Initially, Höss denied his identity, but a critical piece of evidence betrayed him. British officers noticed his wedding ring and demanded he remove it, threatening to cut off his finger. Inside the ring were inscribed the names Rudolf and Hedwig. Faced with this undeniable proof, Höss confessed his true identity. On April 15, 1946, Höss testified at the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg. When accused of killing 3,500,000 people, he corrected the figure with chilling precision. No, only 2.5 million. The rest died of disease and starvation. His testimony laid bare the scale of the atrocities, as he detailed the murder of approximately 3 million people at Auschwitz, including 400,000 Hungarian Jews in the summer of 1944 alone. His words, delivered without remorse, shocked the tribunal and the world. On May 25, 1946, Höss was handed over to Polish authorities to face trial for his crimes. The proceedings were meticulous, documenting the horrors he had overseen. On April 2, 1947, he was convicted of war crimes and sentenced to death by hanging. Höss did not appeal for leniency. His only requests were to write a farewell letter to his family and to return his wedding ring to his wife, a final gesture of personal connection amidst the enormity of his actions. Former Auschwitz prisoners, many of whom had endured unimaginable suffering, petitioned the court with a powerful demand: that Höss be executed at the camp itself, on the grounds where his crimes were committed. The court granted this request, recognizing the symbolic weight of such an act. On April 16, 1947, Rudolf Höss was led to a short-drop gallows constructed near the former Gestapo headquarters, adjacent to the crematorium where countless lives had been extinguished. At the age of 45, he was hanged, his death marking the end of a man who had orchestrated one of the darkest chapters in human history. The execution of Rudolf Höss was more than the punishment of a single individual. It was a moment of reckoning, a step toward justice for the millions who perished at Auschwitz. Yet, it also served as a somber reminder of the depths to which humanity can descend when ideology overrides morality, when obedience supplants conscience. The legacy of Auschwitz endures, not only in the memories of survivors but in the lessons it imparts to future generations. We must remember, not to dwell in the past, but to ensure that such horrors are never repeated.